I'm Glenda. It was a typical weekend evening at my small apartment. I was sitting on the couch, about to transfer $8,000 from my savings to my sister. My mom had called earlier, asking me to help my sister, Ivy, who was going through a divorce and needed money for rent. She said, "You've always been the strong one, Glenda. Family helps family." I stared at my Chase banking app, the cursor hovering over the transfer button, when I thought about my father's funeral. It was just 3 months ago. My dad, Harold, had passed away from pancreatic cancer. At the altar in front of 200 people, my mom, Doris, stood up straight. With a calm and composed voice she said, "Harold treated both his daughters equally. We will honor that." But then, my eyes landed on the old laptop sitting on the shelf. It was the one my father gave me before he died, saying it had work-related supplier contacts. I hadn't opened it since the funeral, but something inside me urged me to check it. Maybe there were contacts that could help me earn extra money, so I didn't have to use my hard-earned savings. I pulled the laptop down. There was a thin layer of dust on its cover. I entered several possible passwords, and finally, using my birthday, it opened. On the desktop, there was a folder labeled for Glenda only. My heart skipped a beat as I clicked on it. Inside were 3 files, a spreadsheet named Lifetime Gifts, XLSX, a subfolder titled Estate Docs, and a PDF named Letter to Glenda. I opened the spreadsheet first. It was an Excel file with 2 columns, one for Ivy and one for me. As I scrolled down, Ivy's column was filled with detailed line items, including dates, descriptions, and amounts. I saw entries like wedding, June 2019, $30,000, down payment for house, August 2020, $18,000, and a credit card debt repayment, 2022 to 2023, $8,000. The total amount given to Ivy over the years was $56,000. In contrast, every single row next to my name simply read $0. I sat there, my hands shaking, staring at the screen in disbelief. At the bottom of the spreadsheet, there was a note typed in all caps. "Doris, I'm leaving this where Glenda will find it. I told you to make this right. You said you would. If she's reading this, you didn't. Please do better. She deserves better. Harold, November 10, 2026. The file's timestamp showed it had been modified on November 18, 2026, just 8 days before he died. He was in hospice, barely able to move, but he still found the strength to update this spreadsheet. And below his note was another line, "Balance due to Glenda per my will, $56,000. I couldn't breathe. I felt as if the floor had been pulled from beneath my feet. I clicked on the Estate Docs folder, which contained a scanned PDF of my father's last will and testament, executed on September 15, 2026. It was from a well-known law firm, Thompson & Sons, and had a notary stamp. I scrolled down to Clause 3.2, which stated, "Prior to any distribution to my spouse, Doris, I direct my executor to pay Glenda the sum of $56,000 in recognition of lifetime gift imbalance. This payment shall be made within 90 days of my death, and is in addition to any other bequests." And Clause 4.1 appointed my mother as the executor of the will. It was now January 8, and the funeral had been on December 26. The 90-day deadline was approaching, but my mother hadn't said a single word about this payment. I opened the letter to Glenda. PDF. It was dated September 20, 2026. "Dear Glenda, if you're reading this, I'm gone and your mother hasn't honored my wishes. She's always been more stubborn than me, and I couldn't fight her when I was alive. But I could do this. I've left you proof. The spreadsheet shows the truth, and the will makes it legal. She has to pay you. This isn't a gift, it's what you've been owed all along. I'm sorry I let it get this far. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you more. But I see you, Glenda. I always have. You are enough. You were always enough. Dad." I burst into tears, sitting alone in the dark at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, with the laptop's glow illuminating my face. He had seen me all these years, even when I felt invisible. He had kept track of every inequality, and when he knew he couldn't change things while alive, he made sure I'd have proof after his death. My phone buzzed again. It was Ivy. Her text said, "Mom said you're thinking about it. I really need this, Glenda. Please." I deleted the text without hesitation. It was time to take action. I knew I had to talk to a probate attorney. I Googled probate attorney, Orange County, and the first call I made the next morning was to Thompson and Sons. The receptionist asked if I had an appointment. I told her, "My father is Harold. He passed away in December, and I need to speak with Mr. Thompson about his will." She arranged for me to come in at 2 p.m. that day and told me to bring ID and any relevant documentation. I printed out the spreadsheet, the will, and the letter and put them in a manila folder. At 2 p.m. I sat across from Mr. Thompson in his conference room. He was in his late 50s, wearing a well-tailored suit and had kind eyes. I slid the folder across the table, and he read in silence for about 10 minutes. Then he looked up and said, "Your father was very thorough. He anticipated this situation. He told your mother the will was straightforward, with assets splitting 50/50ths between you and your sister after her passing. But he never mentioned the $56,000 payment to you." I replied, "No," she said everything was simple and didn't need any lawyers. Mr. Thompson pulled up something on his computer, typed for a while, and frowned. "Your father's will should have been filed with the probate court within 30 days of his death, which was on December 16th. The deadline was on January 15th. However, when I checked the Orange County Probate Court website, there are no filings for Harold's will. Your mother violated the California Probate Code Section 8200. She had a legal obligation to file this will, but she didn't." I asked, "What does that mean?" He replied, "It means she concealed the will, whether intentionally or not, I can't say for sure. But combined with the fact that she didn't disclose the $56,000 payment to you, it's at least a breach of fiduciary duty." I desperately asked, "Can you fix this?" He nodded. "Yes, we can file a petition to probate the will. If necessary, we'll remove your mother as the executor and compel payment according to your father's instructions. It'll take between 60 to 90 days, and the legal fees will be around $3,800. I thought about my $12,000 in savings. I knew I could afford it. Mr. Thompson then said, "Before we file, you might want to talk to your mother. Give her a chance to comply voluntarily. It could save you time and money." But I was filled with anger and disappointment. She had lied to my face. She asked me to give $8,000 to Ivy while hiding the fact that my father wanted me to receive $56,000. I wrote a check for $1,900, half of the retainer fee, and the rest was due when we filed the petition. I asked, "Do I have to tell her I'm doing this before we file?" He said, "No, but once we file, she'll be served, and she'll know." I left his office feeling a mix of fear and determination. I drove to my mother's house. She opened the door with a smile. "Glenda, I wasn't expecting you. Come in. I just made coffee." I said, "This won't take long." We sat at the kitchen table. The morning sun shone through the window, and she was still wearing her gardening clothes. I placed the manila folder on the table. "I found Dad's laptop," I said, my voice shaky. Her smile faltered for a split second. I slid the spreadsheet across the table. "He kept track of every dollar he and you gave to Ivy, and every zero next to my name." She picked up the spreadsheet, and her hand visibly trembled. "Where did you get this?" she asked. I replied, "He gave me his laptop before he died, saying it was for work files." She tried to dismiss it. "This is just his personal notes." It doesn't mean anything. I pointed at the bottom of the page. Read the bottom. She did, and I watched as her face paled and then hardened. I then slid the will across the table. This is Dad's will from September 2026. Clause 3. 2 states that you're supposed to pay me $56,000 before any other distribution. You were supposed to file this with the probate court by January 15th, but it's already January 8th, and you haven't said a word. She stood up. You're upsetting yourself over nothing. Sit down, she ordered. I stood my ground. You told everyone at the funeral that Dad treated us equally. You said his will was simple, with a 50-50th split after you pass. But you knew I was owed $56,000 and still asked me to loan Ivy $8,000. She tried to defend herself. Your father was on a lot of medication at the end. He wasn't thinking clearly. I retorted, he signed this will on September 15th, 3 months before he died. He was completely lucid. I've already checked with his lawyer. Her face turned as white as a sheet. You contacted a lawyer? She asked. Yes, Mr. Thompson from Thompson & Sons, the one who wrote the will. He confirmed you never filed it. She pleaded, this is a family matter. We don't need lawyers and courts. I stood up, taking my car keys. You're right. We didn't need them, but you lied. So now we do. She was furious. How dare you go behind my back? I said, you went behind my back 4 months ago when you buried this will and asked me for money I was owed. I walked towards the door. You have 1 week to file the will and arrange the payment. If you don't, my lawyer will file a petition and remove you as the executor. It'll all be public record, and everyone will see what you did. She shouted, if you do this, you'll tear this family apart. I turned back and said, you did that when you lied at Dad's funeral. And with that, I left. On my way home, my phone rang. It was Ivy. What did you say to Mom? She just called me crying. I said, I asked her about Dad's will. There was a long, uncomfortable silence. I said, you knew, didn't you? She hesitated and then said, Glenda, it's complicated. I demanded, when did she tell you? She finally admitted, December, right after the funeral. She showed me the will and said Dad wasn't in his right mind, and she wasn't going to follow it. I thought she'd work it out with you privately. I was overcome with a mix of anger and betrayal. She asked me to give you $8,000 last week, and you knew I was owed $56,000 and said nothing. You got $30,000 for your wedding, $18,000 for a house down payment, and $8,000 for credit card debt. I got a cheap set of kitchen utensils for my wedding. That's not fair, Ivy. She tried to justify herself. I have 3 kids, and my ex-husband barely pays child support on time. I'm living in a small apartment. You're single, no kids, and you have a good job. You don't understand what it's like. I interrupted her. No, you just accepted the favoritism for years. And when Dad tried to balance things, you and Mom conspired to hide it from me. She said, I didn't conspire. I retorted, you knew and stayed silent. You let her ask me for money. That's conspiracy, Ivy. If you side with Mom on this, I'll never forgive you. With that, I hung up, blocked her number, and then blocked my mother's number. I then called Mr. Thompson. File it, I said firmly. He asked, you're certain? I replied, completely. The petition was filed on January 20th. It was a 50-page document titled Petition to Probate Will and for Letters of Administration, plus petition to remove executor for breach of fiduciary duty. The will was attached as Exhibit A, and the spreadsheet was Exhibit B. The court clerk stamped it, and I was assigned case number 27 PR 0934. The filing fee was $500. A process server delivered the petition to my mother on January 22nd. She had 30 days to respond. She left me a voicemail. How could you do this? Your father would be ashamed. You're destroying this family over money. This is not who we raised you to be. I deleted it without a second thought. Ivy also left a voicemail, saying, the kids are asking why they can't see Aunt Glenda. What am I supposed to tell them? I didn't respond. Within a week, the case showed up on the county court website. Small-town gossip spread like wildfire. My cousin, Linda, called me. I saw the filing online. Oh my God, Glenda. I had no idea. My uncle, my mother's brother, also called. Your mother is my sister, but what she did, that's not right. I'm sorry, Glenda. My mother's colleagues at the local library called me. Your mother always said you were too independent to accept help. That was a lie, wasn't it? I replied, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry she misled you all these years. I could hear the guilt in her voice as she said, we should have questioned it. She's been very quiet at work this week. On February 5th, my mother's lawyer called Mr. Thompson. My client wants to settle, avoid a hearing. She'll pay the $56,000 plus court costs. She requests a confidentiality clause. Mr. Thompson called me and relayed the message. I said firmly, no. The case stays public. She doesn't get to hide this. He warned, they may refuse without it. I replied, then we go to court. I have time. After 3 days of back and forth negotiations, her lawyer finally caved in. My client agrees to settlement without confidentiality terms. The signing was scheduled for February 18th in Mr. Thompson's conference room. My mother arrived with her lawyer. She wouldn't even look at me. The settlement terms stated that the $56,000 would be paid in 3 installments over 60 days, and the court costs of $3,500 would be paid immediately. The case would be dismissed with prejudice, with no admission of wrongdoing, as per standard legal language. We sat at opposite ends of the table. The lawyers placed the documents in front of us. Sign here, here, and here, her lawyer said. There was complete silence as we signed. As she got up to leave, I said, Dad wanted you to do better. You still didn't. She walked out without a word. On February 20th, the first payment of $18,667 hit my account. It wasn't a feeling of victory, it felt like finally being seen. The court had recognized the imbalance, and the paperwork was proof. The court costs payment also came through the same day. I used the first payment to pay off my student loans, $22,000 that had been hanging over my head for 13 years. The automated phone message from the loan servicer said, your current balance is $0. 00. I cried not from sadness but from relief. The second and third payments came in on time. I combined them and put down $28,000 on a small house in Orange County. It was a 1-bedroom cottage, 1,000 square feet, and the total price was $250,000. I needed a mortgage, but I finally had some real equity, a place that was truly mine. I also donated $7,000 to the local animal shelter in my father's name, creating the Harold Memorial Fund for abandoned pets. The shelter director was overjoyed when I handed her the check. This will help so many animals that no one else wants, she said. I replied, I know how that feels. On March 15th, I sent my mother an email. The subject line read, moving forward. I wrote, the court has settled what Dad wanted. I'm not interested in reconciliation, apologies, or explanations. I'll attend major family events if necessary, but I'm done being your backup plan or your example of the strong one. Do not ask me for money. Do not ask me to help Ivy. Do not contact me unless it's an emergency. I'm choosing myself, like Dad wanted. Glenda. She read the email, as confirmed by the read receipt, but she never responded. It was okay with me. Ivy's oldest daughter, Lily, texted me a few weeks later. "Miss you, Aunt Glenda." I smiled.